Back on the Young Turks. Now we're talking to David Sirota. He's the author of The Hostile Takeover and the Uprising. And he wants to start an uprising against 13 Democrats in Congress. David, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
All right, tell me why you're so mad at these 13 Democrats.
Well, the article looks at who is actually blocking and obstructing health care reform in the Congress. And what you have, it really boils down to 6 senators, Republicans and Democrats, and about 7 House Democrats on the Commerce Committee. These are the folks who have threatened to stop health care reform in their committees. And what you find is that most of them are small states and very, very undiverse districts. Mostly in the House, mostly Southern Democrats. In the Senate, mostly small state Republicans and Democrats. And they get a huge amount of money from the health insurance industry. That's not surprising. And so what you really have is the undemocratic nature of the Congress, of the ability to bottle up bills in a committee, in the Senate, the ability of senators from places like Wyoming and Montana to have as much, or really in this case, more of a say than huge states like California, New York, to really block health care reform on behalf of moneyed interests.
Well, look, I'm going to take issue with 2 parts of this. One, I don't think it's just those 13 guys, because they obviously couldn't do it if they didn't have the entire Republican Party voting with them. So then,
well, that's certainly true. I certainly think that's true in a general sense. But I think what you've seen is that first and foremost, we're not seeing a vote, or those 13 are threatening to not even let the bill move forward to a vote of the full Congress. So in that sense, they are really obstructing the entire bill on behalf of the rest of the Congress.
All right. Now, secondly, you mentioned that they come from very undiverse places, but they also come from places, as you mentioned in your articles, that are poorer than average American.
Yes.
And so they should be motivated, if they cared about their constituents, to actually want to get health care reform, because their constituents need it more than the average American. So I don't think the diversity or lack of diversity plays into it much.
Well, I think look, economic class and race are hard to disaggregate, and so you can make the case that in coming from districts that are not very diverse, these are districts, and I ran the math. They have a far lower percentage of the population of the districts in question have a far lower percentage of African Americans and Latinos than the nation as a whole. And those are 2 communities that are going to be disproportionately impacted, have disproportionate investment in health care by virtue of the fact that those are 2 communities that have higher uninsurance rates than the rest of the country. And so you can make the case that these legislators, because they don't face those communities in a representative kind of way when they go home to those districts, they have potentially more latitude in shilling for the insurance industry. Now, you could also argue, and I mentioned this in my column, that you're right, that these districts also happen to be disproportionately poorer than the rest of the country. And so these districts, from an economic perspective, as a whole, have more to gain from universal health care coverage than the rest of the country. Not that the rest of the country doesn't have something to gain by it, but with poverty rates that are higher and per capita incomes that are lower in these districts, they have more to gain. And that then gets us to the issue of campaign finance reform.
Right.
And
let me step in there, David. And we're talking to David Sirota. He's the author of The Uprising and Hostile Takeover. There's where I think you made a really interesting point, that the smaller state senators are easier to buy for the healthcare industry. So tell us why you say that and what you mean by it.
Well, it's basically the way a lobbyist or an interest group buys loyalty from a senator through the campaign finance system is to effectively buy them re-election campaign commercials. And so in the states and districts that are more rural, the cost for television airtime is cheaper. So $2 million, for instance, or what is it, $3 million to Max Baucus of Montana $3 million in a state like Montana, because the airtime, television airtime, is so cheap, $3 million can really buy a total vote, buy the entire senator from Montana, whereas it's harder to have $3 million buy, say, the senator from California, where it costs a lot more, where TV time is more expensive. And that's not to say that big state senators can't shill for big money either. But particularly in rural states that happen to be very poor, where it's hard for legislators to raise lots of money in the state, special interests, Washington special interests, it's easier and cheaper for them to buy those senators. And Nate Silver of 538.com, in a subsequent post after my column, he actually looked at the recipients of corporate PAC money, and what he found was that out of the top 20 recipients of corporate PAC money, all 20 of them are from states that have less than the mean population of the country. Meaning, if you took 50 states and divided into the total population of the United States, you'd come up with a mean population. And basically, what he found is that corporate PACs actually target their money to senators from smaller, cheaper states to buy television airtime in.
And let me add a second layer to that, David. As I was thinking about it, I thought, it's also harder for them to raise in smaller states significant in-state fundraising from their actual constituents.
That's exactly right.
And that's why Max Baucus is referred to as the senator from K Street, because he raises almost no money from Montana, but raises a tremendous amount of money from K Street.
Right. Montana is one of the poorest states in the country. You cannot raise, I think he raised $9 million in his last election run. You cannot raise $9 million in campaign contributions in Montana. I mean, there's 900,000 people in Montana. It's a very poor state, but you can raise that money in Washington. And here's the worst part about it, is that not only does the money go farther, not only is it cheaper for a Washington special interest to buy a rural state congressperson or senator, but it's very, very difficult to mount a challenge to that senator when they're raising such a disproportionately huge amount of money from Washington. In other words, it's very difficult to challenge that senator in a re-election race or a primary race at home because they have such a relatively overwhelming amount of money.
David, before we run out of time, I got to ask you about what we can do about this today. I know in the long run it's campaign finance reform, but in the short run, do Democrats have to call out their fellow Democrats and say, look, the reality is one of the ways that the insurance companies are going to try to kill this is by spending ad money, another way is doing these near riots at town halls that we covered today with their fake grassroots efforts, but the third way is by buying our fellow Democratic senators and congressmen.
Well, I think that what we can do right now is two things. One is that the easiest way to knock off one of these members of Congress, and really the easiest way to scare them, is to scare them through a potential primary threat. Those are very, very small turnout elections, and the smaller the turnout election you get, money can play a lesser and lesser important role. So it's hard. It would be, for instance, in Montana, it would be particularly hard for Max Baucus to just be able to win a Democratic primary just with money. So I think he can be scared, or somebody like him can be scared. I also think that we need to, ultimately, what's going to happen is we're going to have to encourage the Democrats to use any means necessary to pass this bill. And by that I mean there's talk in the Senate of doing a reconciliation vote, which would basically circumvent the filibuster. There was talk in the House of saying, forget the Commerce Committee, just bring the bill that's already passed a couple other committees to the full floor of the House and pass it through the House. It's going to require those kinds of bare-knuckle tactics to pass a bill that's this important.
We have 1 minute left. Schumer just threatened reconciliation. Do you think he's bluffing, or is there any chance Democrats actually do this? Because the real question is, do they want to pass real health care reform? Because they're going to pass something. The question is whether it's real and includes a public option or not. So are they bluffing, or is it for real?
My guess is that it is actually for real, because I think finally the political dynamic is working for progressive ends. And I say that because Obama has clearly promised real health care reform. The public will know if it's not real, because you can't fake this one. People are going to know, right? You're going to know if your health care bills and your health care bills went down and your health care coverage went up. So he knows he can't fake it. The Democrats basically are going to know that they can't fake it, I think, and they're going to have to deliver. And if they don't deliver, I think they're going to know they're going to pay a political price.
All right, David Sirota, author of The Hostile Takeover and the Uprising. Thank you as always.
Thanks, Jake.